Hello, Professor Toybox here along with Princess Jasmine, and today I'm putting the finishing touches on my Agrabah Desert toy box. So I'm going to begin here in the outpost, and I've already taken the liberty to save a little bit of time of putting down the creativitoys that I need. So we have the Brave Sidekick well door. That's here, and if I move this, you can see you find that in the gameplay toys drawer. I'll put that back down. And I've got an object generator, a dynamic trigger, and a enemy wave generator. And I've also put down some locators here in the outpost. And I'll give you just kind of a quick bird's eye view of where all of those are. And I've already hooked up most of them to the enemy wave generator to save a little time. And again, all you do is new locator connection, and come over and select the locator and make that one of your spawn locations. And what I want to have happen in the outpost is when the player comes in here or gets near the outpost, I'm going to generate the enemies. And when they defeat the enemies, they can throw Genie into the sidekick well, and that'll cough up a prize. And I'm using the object generator for that. So that's what happens here at the outpost. And so I've already got the enemy wave generator hooked up to some locators, and I've already taken the opportunity to configure the wave, and I'm generating 4 Agrabah guards, and I did that ahead of time because that's way down in the list. And again, on my Wii U, if you look at the menu at the bottom, I would press A to set the count, and I've already set it to 4. And that's all I've done with this toy. So I still need to configure the properties. So for this, we're going to leave everything here the same, except I'm going to take the generation delay down to 0. And for the dynamic trigger, we're going to do a new locator connection, and I'm going to connect that up to this locator here in the gate. And for the properties on the dynamic trigger, we'll change the target to be the locator that I just connected. And the trigger distance we're going to set to 60. Just like that. And that puts a nice radius around the outpost. And since there's only a couple of limited ways to get in here, the walls will kind of help hide the enemy generation. So you don't have to go much more than 60. If you plan to use the flying carpet or a flying character, then maybe you might want to change that radius a little bit. Alright, so on the dynamic trigger then, we're going to do a new logic connection. When entered by player any, we'll come over to the wave generator and generate the wave. That will put the enemies in here. And I only want to do this once. If we defeat the enemies and go away and then come back, I don't necessarily want more enemies here. So on the enemy wave generator, we're going to do a new logic connection. When the wave is generated, we'll come back over to the dynamic trigger and turn it off. And then if we want, we can hook up the reset button over there near the start of the level to turn that back on. But I'm not going to do that for you here because that'll take a little time. All right, and then the other part of this is the sidekick well. So we're going to open the properties for this. And I do not want to remove Genie on entry. And I probably do want to disable the door after use, so I'll leave that on. If you need to test this multiple times, you can turn this off temporarily, but I'm not going to test anything today. Detection level, we'll leave it 1. Normal response chance, take that to 10, and we'll leave that one set at 0. And then we'll do a new logic connection. When the normal response is returned, we'll come over to our object generator. And I'm going to do under tools, we're going to do the pirate bombs. And we're going to need to connect up a locator for that as well. So I'm going to pick this up and put it down. And we'll put this out here next to the well. And then we'll connect this up with a new locator connection for the object generator. And that way the pirate bombs will generate here instead of over on top of this. And then at this point, we're all done with the outpost, and we can go ahead and move all of these creativitoys below the terrain. And that'll get them out of the way. And of course the same with the enemy wave generator. And I'm not going to do this for all of them, but just to show you, that's what I do. And there. The locators, of course, we leave where they are, and the sidekick well, we'll leave that where it is also. Okay, so that's it for the outpost. Next up, we'll do the bandit camp. So we'll come out here and do that one. That's very similar to what we just did for the outpost, but it's a little bit different, not much. So out here I've placed a dynamic trigger, which I'm going to connect in a moment to this locator. And I've also got some locators spread out over here in the camp, as well as instead of a well this time, I'm using the tree door. And I've got an object generator and a wave generator, enemy wave generator, and I've also put down a treasure chest here. And so the enemy wave generator I've already hooked up to these locators that are spread around the camp, and the placement of those doesn't really matter. You just want to spread them out around the camp. You don't want to lump them together, and they don't have to be exactly where I am. Again, just want to spread them out. And we'll go into the properties. I've already configured the wave to use 4 Uncar's hammer goons and 1 fixer, and both of these enemies are from the Force Awakens playset. Under properties, we're going to leave everything under here the same, except again, I'll take the generation delay to 0. For the object generator, once again, new locator connection. I'm going to connect that to this locator behind the tree over here, and that locator is up in the air a little bit behind that tree. And for the dynamic trigger, new locator connection, we'll connect it up to this locator over here. If I can select it. There we go. My goodness, that was more of a chore than it should have been. Okay, on the dynamic trigger for the properties on this, again, we'll set the target to be the locator. And the trigger distance this time, I'm going to set to be 100. So as we approach this well, or this oasis, that will generate the enemies. And then on the dynamic trigger, we'll do again a new logic connection when entered by player, any. Come over to the enemy wave generator and generate the wave. And on the enemy wave generator, new logic connection when the wave is generated. We'll turn around and turn off this dynamic trigger, so this only happens once. And again, you can connect this one up to the reset button at the start of the level as well to turn that back on. That way you can test this multiple times if you need to do that. And that's pretty much it. With this already connected to those locators and already configured, that's everything we need for that. On the tree, we'll open the properties for this. And just like before, we do not want to remove Genie on entry. We'll disable the door after use. I'll leave that set at 1. Normal response chance 10. Explosive chance 0. And again, we'll do a new logic connection when the normal response is returned. Come over to the object generator, and under the tools, this time I'm going to use the flintlock. That gives the player some different toys to play with, some different weapons to mix up the combat a little. And then on the treasure chest, we'll open the properties for this and we'll configure the loot. And for this, I'm going to use this to give us the health capsule. And I like to do this rather than putting the health capsule out there directly, because you can actually do that. You can come into the gameplay toys drawer, and now it's down a little ways, but I gotta go back this way anyway. So, of course, the health capsule is right here available in this drawer to access directly. And you could just put the health capsule there between the tents instead of using the treasure chest, but these take up a lot of memory. And so by using the treasure chest, that health capsule doesn't actually show up until they open the chest. And so that saves some memory. All right, and that's it for the Oasis. So that's pretty good. Next up, we'll do the mountain. And up here we have two locators. There's one here on this peak, and we're going to connect that in a moment to this object generator. And there's another one inside that little hole over here that I'm going to connect to this enemy, or this object generator. And so we'll go ahead and do that next. So new locator connection on the object generator. We're going to connect to, that locator. And same thing with this one. New locator connection. And that'll be the generation location. And now to invoke both of these, I'm going to use the level starter. And so we'll come back over here to this Oasis, to my level starter over here. And for this, we'll do a new logic connection on catalyze. And we'll come back over to those object generators. And I'm going to scroll down and select the random. And so this will put something kind of random out here. So climbing the mountain will give you a couple of rewards, and I put one on each peak just to make it worthwhile, especially if there's two players, so that each player can get something special. That's why I have an object generator in each of the outpost and bandit camps as well, so that the players can share those. So they'll get one fixed thing, either a pirate bomb or a flintlock, and then something random. And this could be the crow wing pack, this could be any kind of toilet paper launcher weapon or any other weapon, or jetpack, or who knows what, just to make things kind of fun. And again, I'll do random on this one as well. And then at this point, we can move each of these object generators below the terrain also. And that's it for the mountain, so that's pretty simple. But it gives the player a purpose for going up there and looking around, besides just getting a nice view of the toy box. All right, next thing we'll do, for the main quest, when you activate that scarab and it takes off, I thought it'd be nice to have a couple of obstacles out here to maneuver around, besides just the sand dunes and jumping over some canyons. And so in some of the video games that are set in the Arabian desert, some of the books and movies, you see whirlwinds, and so that came to my mind. And so I'm going to go ahead and create a path. We're going to do the couple of these, and I'm going to do one around that sand dune, and I'm going to make it kind of an oblong shape. And so we'll go ahead, and I don't want to make this too big though, because I want the player to have some chance of running into this. So we'll come in from that seam a little bit, and that puts us in point creation mode. And I'm going to go counterclockwise around this thing, and we can adjust these points as we go. But I'll just get them placed here initially. And then another one out here, maybe like that. We'll come around here, put one off the corner of that, like that. Another one out here, and then exit. Then we'll come over to the path creator and open the properties. And for this, I'm going to leave active set on. I'm going to set the speed to be 250, so it'll move fairly quick. I want this to be looped, and all of the rest of these are fine. Okay, now let's take a look at what we've got and make some tweaks if we need to. So for this one, I think I'll move this point down a little bit. Bring it in. This one's out a little too far for my liking. There we go. Well, that's that one's a little bit off. Let's go ahead and put this out here, maybe. There we go. That's not too bad. I think I'm going to pull this out just a little further. And paths can be a little tweaky. You want to kind of play with these a little bit. That looks pretty good. Okay, and then for the whirlwind, I believe, yep, you find that under platforming toys, and that's right here. So I'm going to go ahead and drop, I believe, yeah, let's go ahead and just drop it down. And I'm going to, oops, go this way. I'll open up the logic menu for the whirlwind. I'll do a new path connection. And we'll connect it to this path, and away it goes. So that just gives the player something else to avoid as they're following that scarab. And we'll do another one down here, and this one will make it a little bit smaller. So for this one, do a little bit more of a circular shape. And I could try to cover the width of this little open area, but again, it's really the area in the way of the player as they're following that scarab that I'm interested in. And so I want to make sure I cover that. We'll exit. And just like before, we'll open the properties, set the speed to be 250, looped is on, the rest of those are fine. And I'm pretty sure I don't have a perfect circle. But that's actually not bad. It's kind of a little bit of an oval shape, so that's all right. All right, and once again, drop the whirlwind, open the logic menu, new path connection. There we go. So now we have another whirlwind. And I could have had that one go the opposite direction if I wanted, but that's fine. So those are pretty easy to create and set up, and just adds a couple of nice little things to avoid to make the scarab chase even a little bit more interesting. Okay, and one more thing left to do, but before I talk about that, I had put a treasure chest over here at the oasis, and if you want, you can put a few more of those around the toy box just to give the player a reason to explore. So like maybe in this little dead-end section of the canyon, maybe up there behind some of those dunes, one or two of them. Hide one around up here on this plateau. Just something to give the player a reason to explore. And it doesn't really matter where you put them. You don't want to do too many of them though. Maybe 2 or 3. Because again, the desert should be mostly empty. The last thing we need is the toy box door that opens the Cave of Wonders. And so for that, we're going to come back up to Gameplay Toys, and that's right here. And before I put this down, let's actually go up to the terrain drawer. And just like I've done in a couple of the other toy boxes, we're going to set up a little command center. And so I'm going to put that underneath the terrain. I'm going to put this little terrain block down here. And I'll go ahead and move these buttons down there to that command center in case I need to use them in the future. So the reset button and the one that just tests the Cave of Wonders going up. And of course I can move all of those other creative toys there below the terrain. So for the Cave of Wonders, I'm going to put the toy box door down here in my little command center. And that way I have a way to access this, because I don't want to put this up there for the player to interact with directly. And so we'll put that down, and I'll open the properties. And for the destination, I'm going to do a new toy box, empty toy box. And for the level name, we'll use Cave of Wonders. And I'm typing that in on my Wii U pad here. There we go. And we'll save. And that creates the Cave of Wonders toy box and links that to this door. And again, I don't want to put that door up here directly, because then the player could just walk right over here and use it. I don't want them using that until the Cave of Wonders is actually opened and it comes up out of the ground up into the air. And so to use the toy box door, we're going to connect up a trigger area. And I'm going to put this out here about like that. And we'll resize this. So about like that. And this trigger area, I don't want the player to be able to interact with this until the Cave of Wonders is open. So once again, let's go over to our level starter. And we'll use this to deactivate that trigger area. So we'll do a new logic connection on the level starter on Catalyze. And we'll come back out to this trigger area. And deactivate it. So that way then when the player comes into this toy box, they can wander over here right up to this wall and nothing's going to happen. They have to follow the main quest to get the scarab over here and open the Cave of Wonders. And so what that means is when the Cave of Wonders comes up out of the ground and it comes to that point, which means it's finally up out of the ground, on this path point, we're going to do a new logic connection. When the point is reached by the object on the path, we'll come over to our trigger area and activate it. And so now the player can use that. And on the trigger area, a new logic connection, when entered by player any, we'll come down to our little command center here, to the toy box door, and change the level. And that will invoke the toy box door to go into the Cave of Wonders. And if we want, we can go ahead and hook up our reset button over here to do a new logic connection. Actually, I think that's the playback one. That's the reset. Because on the path creator, that's doing the reset and stop. So that's my reset button. So on this one, I can do a new logic connection when pressed. We can come up and turn that trigger area back off. Okay, so with that, the Agrabah Desert Toy Box is done. It'll be about a week until the next episode in this series, because I'm making a few changes to my rail slide puzzle in the Cave of Wonders. But next time, Aladdin will finally enter the cave to search for Jafar's lamp, and you'll get a good look at that toy box as I play through it. But meanwhile, don't worry, I won't leave you hanging. While you're waiting for my Aladdin series to resume, I've got a special video for you on Monday. It's something a little different, and it will answer a question that some of you have been asking about my new Disneyland series. You won't want to miss that, so if you haven't already subscribed to my channel or signed up to follow me on my blog, now is a good time to do that. And for those of you who are building this toy box on your own systems, I've got logic diagrams on my blog for today's episode that might help you out. Until next time, take care.